Long time no see. I hope you guys are having a great day. So the Astros capped off a season-long 9-game homestand with a 4-9 record. They took 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers and then lost back-to-back series against the Pittsburgh Pirates and Tampa Bay Rays. We have got a lot to unpack in this video here. Unfortunately, I was out of town, so I was not able to be recording any videos from this homestand. So we've got a lot to pack. We've got a lot to unpack in this video with the trade deadline and give you guys my initial reactions to it. So it's all coming up next. Stay tuned. Alrighty guys, so this video is going to end up being pretty long. Could very well end up being, but I'm going to try to keep it short. And for the sake of keeping it short, instead of breaking down all 9 games into one video, I'm just going to be talking about the highlights for most of this homestand, the good and the bad, and also my reactions to the trade deadline and how the Astros did. Because unfortunately, yes, I was out of town visiting family when all this stuff was going on. But let's talk about the trade deadline acquisitions first, as the Astros had acquired Kikuchi. I just know his last name, not his first name, unfortunately. But the Astros had acquired Kikuchi from the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Jake Bloss, Joey Loperfido, and then I believe one other prospect. So, I mean, when I first saw the news on this, I was pissed. I was honestly a little bit upset. Yes, the Blue Jays are obviously not going to be competing for a playoff spot this season. As of when I last looked, they're more than 8 games or so at least out of a wild card spot. Last place in their division for sure. But they basically just got a big haul for a team for pretty much no reason, if I'm being honest. Kikuchi is more of your average kind of guy. He's like your number 3 or number 4 type starter. And I know that the Astros needed pitching this trade deadline with Christian Javier being out for the season, Jose Urquidy being out for the season. Obviously, Justin Verlander is still progressing nicely, but he's not at 100% yet, and he could not be back anytime soon. Or at least that was the case at the deadline. More on him later. But again, many people at the time of this trade had criticized this move by the Astros because, they were just kind of desperate. Which, it would make sense given the fact that this was a buyer's market with very few sellers. And, there was not really a lot of big guys that teams were going to be trading. Even Garrett Crochet for the Chicago White Sox did not get traded, which, it did kind of blow my mind. But to his credit, the White Sox were asking a very high price of him. And, I was a bit surprised to see that not a lot of teams could afford him. But even Jack Flaherty of the Detroit Tigers, that was another pitch that the Astros certainly had their eyes on. But instead, he went to the Dodgers. And speaking of the Dodgers, let's go ahead and recap this first opening homestand series against the Dodgers, coming up shortly after I show you guys some rehab and injury updates. First on Justin Verlander. Over the weekend, he threw a 50-plus pitch bullpen, and he felt good. Then, this past Sunday, so today is when I'm recording this, he threw a simulated game this weekend, which could probably mean that he'll be going on rehab assignments likely this week, if not next. He's looking at a return of sometime around later this month, so he will likely be the first guy to come back. Next up is Luis Garcia. He had suffered a minor setback when he had showed up on the ballpark this past Friday, I believe, with a sore elbow. But thankfully it wasn't anything too serious. Didn't show any additional tests, showed no structural damage. He was set to resume throwing soon. He did throw 30 pitches in 2 simulated innings in Houston on July 30th, which I don't even know what day of the week that was. It was last week for sure. And he stated he did feel good after that. So, hopefully he'll go out on a rehab assignment with Justin Verlander as well. But we don't know exactly when this month he could come back. But to catch you guys up just a little bit, if you have been living under a rock, Luis Garcia had Tommy John surgery early into the season last year. And, he has definitely proven to be a workhorse of a starter in previous years. So, when he comes back, he is going to be a huge, huge inning eater, especially for all of the young guys who have really carried a lot of the workload this season. They've really hit their innings limit, particularly Ronel Blanco and Spencer Arrighetti. Going back here, Montero. So, Rafael Montero to clear a spot for some of the Astros trade deadline acquisitions, which, by the way, let me mention the second trade deadline acquisition the Astros had gotten, and that was reliever Caleb Ferguson, who they had acquired from the New York Yankees. And he made one appearance over the course of this weekend against the Rays. He did okay. It's too early for me to tell if this trade deadline is going to be good or not, or any of these trades for that matter. But but I mean, for their first debuts, I mean, they didn't do too shabby. Like Kikuchi, Kikuchi made his debut this week, and I'll break down more of his start later on in this video. Going back to rehab updates here, Rafael Montero, to clear a spot for those rosters, was DFA'd by the Astros in the midst of a 3-year contract, of which he is in the second year of. But the good news is that he did clear waivers and was outrated to AAA Sugarland. So I'm hoping that he can try to fine tune some things, get a little bit better to hopefully hopefully a version of himself that he was in 2022 when he led the Astros to their second World Series title. And then the last pitcher update I am going to share with you guys, it's the worst one of all, which is why I've saved it for last. Lance McCullers Jr. Unfortunately, Joe Espada had announced this morning that he will not be pitching this season with where he is currently at. It's just really, really sad. I mean, all of the fans really wanted to see this guy pitch. He is now going to be missing his second straight full season. He has not pitched since Game 3, I think, of the 2022 World Series. And obviously that offseason, he had surgery to repair his right flexor tendon and also remove a bone spur. He was hoping to return to the mound at the end of this season and had progressed relatively nicely, but unfortunately he was pulled off of a rehab start back in July, and after seeking a second opinion from some doctors, there was no structural damage to his elbow, but there's really not much of a reason given for a setback. But Joe Espada did say that with where he is at, he will not be pitching this season. With that, there goes another season-ending injury to another Astros pitcher, which, I mean, is really sad, if I'm being 100% honest. But he had missed the entire 2019 season after undergoing Tommy John surgery. He had injured his flexor tendon in the 2021 Division Series, which he did get surgery on to repair. And then he spent most of the 2022 season rehabbing the injury, and it worked well. He did make some appearances over the remainder of the regular season that year and also in the postseason. But unfortunately, something just gave out on him, and he's going to be missing the next he's going to be missing the next 2 years, which is just really sad. Everybody wants this guy to pitch. The team wants him to pitch. The players want to see him out there, and obviously the fans want to see them out there. And again, just sad that it has to end this way for him. But, you know, it is what it is. Last but certainly not least, rehab updates have gone on here long enough. Kyle Tucker is still progressing okay, I guess. He will not be traveling with the team to Arlington, the first leg of their upcoming 3-city road trip. He will continue to rehab down here in Houston, but I did read that potentially he could rejoin them in either Boston or Tampa Bay, depending on how it goes. Although there's no word as to whether he's going to be getting sent out on a rehab assignment. He could return at the end of this month, so we'll see. But finally, guys, let's dive into this homestand as we break down the games. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not going to be, recapping all 9 games. I'm just going to be discussing the highlights for each one, primarily the good ones. But we're going to start off with the very first series of this homestand against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So, starting off here in game number 1. First off, I was there. It was an absolutely electric atmosphere this weekend. Let's be honest, it always is, especially if it's on a Friday night. So, Framber Valdez was the star of the show this evening as he went 6.1 innings, striking out 10 batters on the evening. I mean, the Astros were actually starting a new streak of what I think is now 12 or 11 consecutive games where the Astros had struck out at least 10 batters. But the Astros would strike out 15 Dodger batters in total in this game. And I think they struck out like 35 over the course of this series, which is crazy. Though to the Astros pitchers' credit, this is a Dodgers team that actually strikes out quite a bit. So that did contribute to that a little bit. But staying on course in this game, Bregman and Singleton each hit home runs. And then the scoring started in this game with an RBI single by Joey Loberfito, who unfortunately, as of when I'm now recording this, had actually been traded. Then Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley, and Taylor Scott got the final 8 outs as the Astros get the shutout win against the Dodgers. This Dodgers team has honestly been falling apart just a little bit. I mean, maybe it's just me, but even over the course of this weekend, their lineup wasn't really a huge threat. The only big threat in this lineup for the Dodgers this weekend series was Shohei Ohtani. And I mean, I think the Astros held him to 4 or 5 hits over the course of the series. Now, of course, it didn't come without a towering 400-plus foot blast that he hit in Game 2 of this series. But at the end of the day, the Astros did go on to win that game. More on that in a bit. But Mookie Betts for the Dodgers was still dealing with a fractured hand prior to the series, so he didn't make the trip. Then Freddie Freeman was a bit more of a serious issue. He was in the starting lineup for the Dodgers going into this game, but he was a late scratch just a couple of hours before first pitch due to a family emergency. His absence over this weekend would loom huge, especially in Friday night, as they couldn't really get anything going against Framber Valdez. But going into some key threats here in the sixth inning, Nick Ahmed for the Dodgers struck out for the first out of the inning. The Dodgers would then go on to load the bases after that with Shohei Ohtani and Will Smith both drawing walks, but Framber Valdez would retire Teoscar Hernandez and Andy Pages to extinguish that threat. Then going into the seventh, the Dodgers then started a very similar threat with getting two of the first three guys on base. He started the inning by striking out Cavan Biggio before he ended up getting replaced by Brian Abreu, who would then finish off the inning. But that wasn't before this happened. Gavin Lux had hit an infield single that would have otherwise cut the deficit to 4-1 Astros, but Kike Hernandez, who was on first base, he overran second base and was tagged out by Alex Bregman to end the inning. And initially, Miguel Vargas, I don't know how to pronounce his name there, but initially he was ruled to have successfully scored from first base, or third base rather, before the tag was applied, but the Astros had challenged that ruling, and it was ruled that he did not cross home plate, thus the run would not count. And that would end up huge because Shohei Ohtani was standing on deck, and he would have otherwise come up as the tying run. Both horrible base running mistakes by the Dodgers on that part for Kike Hernandez overrunning second base, and also Vargas for not actually hustling to the plate to actually get the Dodgers on the board before the tag was even applied. Even if he did score, it would have otherwise ended the inning, but at the very least, the Dodgers would have actually scored something that inning, so I was a little bit surprised that they didn't. And like I said earlier, the Astros would then go on to complete the shutout in this game, shutting the Dodgers out 5-0. Going into game two, it started off really rough for Ronel Blanco in this game. He only went 4.1 innings while allowing 4 runs. His second start in a row allowing that many runs, one of which, like I mentioned earlier, was a 440-foot blast from Shohei Ohtani. Gavin Lux got hit by a pitch by him, and then Joe Kelly, who was in the Dodgers dugout, had given him a rather rude gesture that I'm not actually going to mention about in this video. But let's just say that little did he know, karma would come to bite back. So yeah, the Astros were down 5-0 going into the bottom of the sixth inning with just 12 outs left to play. If the Dodgers would get those outs, they would force a rubber match in game 3. And after they had jumped up 5-0 to this point, that seemed kind of likely. But the Astros actually ended up winning this game. And would we really be talking about a rubber match if that's what happened? No, but let's talk about it. So the scoring for the Astros had started in this inning as they scored 4 times, all with 2 outs to make it a 1-run game going into the top half of the 8th inning, where the Dodgers would get one of those runs back from Cavan Biggio hitting a solo home run. Then going into the bottom of the 8th, the Astros were down by 2. After Yordan had flied out to start the inning, Yanier Diaz would follow with a triple, and he would then score on an RBI single by Pena to make it 6-5 Dodgers, before John Singleton followed with an RBI single of his own to knot the game at 6, the closest the Astros had been all night, and also the second time the Dodgers had blown a 5-0 lead this season. But the inning was not over yet. The Astros would then load the bases, go ahead and potential winning run just 90 feet away for Jose Altuve, but unfortunately, he would strike out on 3 awful pitches to end the inning, arguably that was probably one of the worst ABs of his career. So the Dodgers' 5-run lead was gone, but the biggest blow was yet to come. After Hader had worked a 1-2-3 top half of the 9th, the bottom of the 9th inning, Alex Bregman stepped up and delivered the swing of the night, a walk-off, towering blast onto the train tracks for the game winner, that only his second walk-off home run of his career that he had hit onto the railroad tracks, and that sent Minute Maid Park into a frenzy. And frenzy doesn't even begin to describe it. Like, it was mayhem. Personally, I kind of wish I was actually at this game instead of the game before that. But the first 2 games of this series were all great, and personally, this would likely be a good candidate for the win of the year. But unfortunately, in Game 3, the celebrations would be short-lived, as unfortunately, I didn't take many notes on this game. Spencer Arrighetti did pitch reasonably well in this game, but unfortunately, the offense could not get much done against the Dodgers. They were only down by 1, but the Dodgers, I think, scored 3 times late in this game to win 6-2, salvaging the series finale. So the Astros did lose this game, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. We still took 2 out of 3 in the series. I'll take that any day. So that was the Dodgers. Now let's talk about the Pirates. So unfortunately, the Astros had actually dropped the first 2 games of this series. The matchup of the season that everyone was certainly excited for was to see Paul Skeens, the number 1 overall pick by the Pirates in last year's draft out of LSU, the national champ, who was a national champion coming out of there, might I add. And he certainly did pitch well in this game. And the Astros, I think, probably got 5 or 6 hits off of him. They scored 2 runs off of him with a bases-loaded single, but the Pirates would rally to tie the game against the Astros bullpen, and then Michael A. Taylor would put it out of reach with a 3-run blast off of Josh Hader. The Astros did score 1 in the bottom of the 9th, but they would ultimately strand the bases loaded to end that game. Game 2 was not really that much better. So, I mean, I don't exactly remember who started this game. I didn't take notes on any of these. Except for Game 3. But it was more the same. The Astros had... This was actually the night when the Astros had made the trades for Kikuchi and Caleb Ferguson. And, I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm really not a huge fan of these trades. I guess they're just okay, I guess. But I'm not going to talk much about it here in this video. I mean, I'm kind of glad that I didn't really have to mourn over these trades and I was just able to enjoy myself spending time with family. But like I said, Game 2 of the series was also a loss for the Astros. So let's just go to Game 3. But going into Game 3 here, the Pirates did have a sweep within their grasp. A win for them, and they would sweep the Astros for the first time since, I think, 2012. After they had jumped out to a 4-0 lead off of Framber Valdez, that seemed likely. But would I really be talking about a win if that's actually what happened? No. Instead, it comboed by a stubborn Pirates defense. The defense on both sides of this series was terrible. Like, I'm putting it up front, I mean, particularly for this game, because the Astros took advantage of 3 errors, 2 of which committed by De La Cruz, which ultimately led them to getting 3 unearned runs to make it a 1-run game. And then Mauricio Dubon would play hero as he comes off the bench and hits a go-ahead 2-run blast to put the Astros up 5-4. That would end up being the difference maker. And then the bullpen, which is always known for blowing 1-1 games, they didn't do it this time. They would slam the door to salvage the series finale. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about our most recent series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Kikuchi would make his Astros debut in the first game of the series. He would end up getting 11 strikeouts in this game, including 8 consecutive strikeouts, which ties a franchise record. Only 4 Astros pitchers have done that in franchise history, the most recent being Justin Verlander. Then John Singleton with an RBI single would get the Astros on the board first, 1 of 2 hits for him in this game. Myers would follow with a sacrifice fly to tie the game at 2. And then Jordan, with some aggressive base running in the 7th, would give the Astros the lead by scoring from first base. The throw from the Tampa Bay's left fielder would come into second base, and Jordan took advantage of that, as the throw by the left fielder would end up trickling away from him, and that allowed him to score all the way from first base. He was initially standing on third, obviously, but he was able to score on that, and that would end up being the difference maker, as Ryan Presley in the 8th inning, despite allowing 2 of the first 3 guys to reach, he would get out of that unscathed, and then Josh Hader would get his second save in a 1-run game. The Astros would win 2 straight in that series. But unfortunately, that's all the wins. That is the only win the Astros would get in this series and for the rest of this homestand. As despite in Game 2, the Astros would strike out 10 batters for the 10+ batters for the 9th straight game, which was a new franchise record. Game 3 was more the same. Spencer Arrighetti had 12 Ks. Yes, you heard that right. 12 strikeouts by Spencer Arrighetti, which was a new career high in the most by an Astros pitcher, even surpassing Kikuchi, who had gotten 11 strikeouts just 2 games before that. But despite that, the Astros bats would fall silent in both of these games. The only run that they would score across those 2 games was on a John Singleton home run. In the 3rd game of this series, the Astros had loaded the bases with just 1 out in the 1st inning. They did not score on that, as you would probably imagine. They didn't have a runner reach third base over the course of the rest of this game. They would only get 3 singles in this game. Overall, they have dropped 10 of their last 17, including 4 and 5 on this recent homestand. They're currently, as of when I'm recording this, a game out of first place as they prepare to travel to the Rangers in what will be a battle for the Silver Boot, which those of you guys who don't know what the Silver Boot is, it's kind of one of those like friendly rivalry trophies that's given between the 2 teams who basically wins the rivalry. In this case for baseball, it's between the Astros and the Raiders. Whoever wins the series gets the silver boot. So the Astros can win 2 out of 3 to clinch the silver boot for, I think, now the 8th straight year. So that's going to be a pretty fun series to watch. This will be, and again, it will be stop 1 of a 3-leg road trip across Arlington, Boston, and Tampa Bay. So it should be a pretty fun road trip. And this is also going to prove how capable we are as a team, because the month of August for us is going to be very, very tough. We've got, I think, 6 games against the Red Sox, 6 against Tampa Bay, 3 of which we just played this weekend. And then we've got 6 road games against Baltimore and also Philly, who has arguably kind of been falling apart a little bit. The only team across this entire month that the Astros are, who is like significantly under 500, are the White Sox. But besides that, this month of August is a gauntlet for us. So personally, dude, if we struggle this month by like we're playing right now, if this keeps up, our season is over. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I've been recording for a half hour at this point, so hopefully I've covered everything for the past week and a half ish that I've missed with me being out of town. So happen to miss anything, just leave a comment down below, I guess. But anyway, if you guys want to watch one of my other videos, then click these ones above my shoulders. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I'll see you guys in the next video.